Civil War. First of all, take a shot anytime you hear someone make a joke about the MCU Civil War. Haha, so funny. Anyways, Alex Garland's Civil War is here. After most people fully rejected his last film, Men, Civil War has been quite the discussion. It's already being deemed one of the more divisive films of the year, which is, fitting for a movie called Civil War, but I was very curious about this movie. From first reactions calling it a masterpiece, while others called it a shallow exercise, my interest in it kept going up. I had a chance to see it, and it's been a while since I've been so conflicted on a movie before. Let me say this off the bat first. If you are someone who turns into the Winter Soldier by the mention of the word politics in movies, you should probably turn this video off now. Thank you so much for clicking, but I'll see you next time. But let's face reality. This movie is called Civil War, and there's a lot to talk about here, so sorry. If you know me at all, or if you know my taste, might go through my letterbox, whatever, you should know that I am not someone who needs my movies to speak on something important, and I definitely don't need movies to lecture me on something about politics. Could I look further into the politics of Top Gun Maverick? Sure, I could do that. Or I could sit back, enjoy it for what it is, scream hell yeah brother at the top of my lungs. I could do that also. And I am capable of doing that for movies, okay? I want to make this so freaking clear. And Alex Garland himself has touted the apolitical nature of Civil War, that it's not a flaw, it's not a mistake by him, but it is a purposeful choice by him. And I get that. This film is centered on war journalists / photographers, the desensitization of these people with what they go through and what they experience. And it makes sense. To these journalists, when you are so entrenched in conflict and documenting that, it can begin to blur. The line between right and wrong can all blur together because at the end of the day, you just become so entrenched in the violence that is all it becomes. It is just violence all the same, no matter what side you're on. I get it. This movie doesn't really explain why the US is at war with itself. It doesn't really explain which side you're rooting for. And yes, it doesn't explain why Texas and California have decided to squad up together. Now, on one hand, you can say, hey man, this is a piece of fiction. Hope that helps. And on the other, you can pick that apart if you want to. And I don't want to miss the big picture here. Civil War is entertaining. There is great technical craft in this movie. I'm not a jumper with movies, nothing really like a jump scare in horror movies that doesn't make me move. Oh, I was jumping in this movie. Certain scenes play out like a horror movie, just filled with so much dread, and just the visual imagery on screen is tough at times. And I will touch back on these positives in a few. I will. But this movie wants to have it both ways. It wants to be an apolitical movie focused on these journalists, but it also wants to address airstrikes on civilians. It mentions an Antifa massacre. Journalists are getting shot down. It even has a scene that seemingly pokes fun at people who choose to not get involved with politics. And the thing about this movie that is so, interesting for lack of a better word is, like that aforementioned scene, this movie has multiple moments that come really close to saying something. And to the point about the fiction, it's yo, I get that. I absolutely get that. But also, when you watch this movie, it so clearly wants to be grounded in reality. So again, it wants to have it both ways. So you can see my confusion and some of other people's confusion when this movie touts being so apolitical. It doesn't give background on why the US is fighting. It doesn't give some of that information. But also, let's talk about some of these politically charged issues and have scenes that basically do speak on it. No spoilers, I promise, but there's a scene with Jesse Plemons who just is the best. That scene with him is hands down my favorite scene in the movie. It's not even close. It is downright scary, anxiety inducing, stress levels ramping up with every passing second. The staging of the scene was also incredible leading up to it, and I really had a moment of wow, this is great. And again, I'm not going to spoil what happens at the conclusion of that scene, but that scene kind of does take a stance on something, and because it did that, it made the scene feel so much more impactful versus I have no idea what this guy is thinking or his mindset, but I guess he's kind of crazy. And that's what I want to drive home on this video, okay? I'm not asking for this movie to take a side. Oh my God, yo, I'm just thinking about it. This comment section is going to be fucking crazy. But if there were more substance to these actions, I do think it would be more impactful. And I can hear people screaming oh my God, that's not the point of the movie. You're missing the point. And I get that. But when you're watching the third act and it becomes a Call of Duty campaign mission that I'm pretty sure I've played before that really has no depth outside of, man, America is pretty divided, huh? Bottom line is, this really just depends on you. Because I'm going to be honest, I think we understand the intention of this movie. Everyone does. I think people who love this movie or people who hate this movie understand its choices. It's just a matter of how that affects you and your viewing experience of the movie. Some of that lack of depth or knowledge and some background might just speak to people and be like, yep, absolutely, war journalists, they get it, and it becomes more impactful to them that way. And then others will think it's a movie that is smarter than it actually is. And I want to be very clear here that I'm not a pretentious person. My fucking channel name is The Film Drunk. I purposely chose that because I do not want to give the impression of that. That's not my style at all. And again, I'm going to zag here and go back. Civil War is incredibly watchable and thrilling. Individual scenes are fantastic. I'm still thinking about that scene with Jesse Plemons. It's amazing. The performances are all there. I particularly really like the progression of Kaylee Spaney's character from seemingly scared child to someone who takes more and more risks as she progresses, and she kind of becomes desensitized herself. Even with all I said, I was still on board for this movie for most of it. It's really the third act where it kind of lost me. But listen, I would see this movie again, and for everything I talked about, I still recommend you go out and see it and form your own opinion. I'm going back and forth on this, but you all know I value when a movie just moves with pace and isn't boring. This could change, but for now, Civil War, 3 stars. All right, so hopefully that discourse should end in the next coming weeks. Oh wait, nope, Joker trailer. Oh boy.